Welcome. Welcome to All Souls, where love is the spirit of our community. Whether you're joining us in person, online, in the present, or catching up with us later, please know that you matter to this community. In this time of great division, may you find hope, love, and community here. Please rise in body or spirit to greet your neighbor with your name and pronouns. And folks online, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Welcome to All Souls, where love is the spirit of our community. Oh, that's the one I already read. I gotta scroll to the next one. Good morning. I am Austin Mitchell. My pronouns are he, him, and I will be serving as worship associate for our today's service, together with Nancy Olson, Director of Congregational Life and Faith Formation, Reverend Marianne Macklin, our returning guest minister, and Liz Elsmore, Music Director, all with pronouns she, her. We are your worship team on the chancel today. Our senior minister, Reverend Katie Romano Griffin, is in Washington, D.C. this weekend with the National Policy Council for Grow Early Learning, aka the East Coast Migrant Head Start program, and she will be back next Sunday. People of all ages are joyfully welcome in service, but nursery care is available if that option works best for you. I also invite everyone to please complete a connection card, either in person or online. This card is a great way to let us know if you would like support, need assistance, have new contact information, or have an interest, comment, or question. Please place any physical cards in the offering basket or do a digital card by scanning the QR code outside the sanctuary. Or it's also on the back of some of the pews now, that QR code. And we have an announcement from Nancy Bainey.
We are having a fun fundraiser on May 9th, Saturday, at 7 p.m. I hope you can join us for our variety show. We will have comedy, we will have skits, storytelling, and music, music, music. Oh, yes, and refreshments afterwards.
As we begin our time together, we acknowledge the land itself and those who have sustained it throughout the generations. We are upon the unceded land of the Lenape, Miamia, Kaskaskia, Shawnee, and Kickapoo people who were pushed from their land and whose children have been stolen for generations. As we strive to be a community of justice, may we continue to find ways to make real reparations.
As we prepare to enter into our call to worship, I wanted to read what I had written about today's service as an introduction. It said, "Join Reverend Mary Ann as we explore the life-giving issue of our mortality." Weaving in the classic book, Tuesdays with Maury, Reverend Mary Ann will share insights from her role as a death doula and discuss how end-of-life care and related issues are changing in the 21st century, including the impact of artificial intelligence. This service is designed to be one of inspiration and education. Of note, the minister's reflection will be earlier in the service than usual, as Reverend Mary Ann will need to leave at 11:15 a.m. to lead a service of remembrance for family members of loved ones throughout Indiana who donated their bodies to Science Indiana, IU Medical School, and as well as their health science services. And I wanted to say this because the order of service is a little rearranged, and I wanted you to not get caught with getting into that as we enter into the worship service. And I thank you because I have been doing this service down in Bloomington for about the past 5 years, this service of remembrance, and it also meant a lot for me to be here today. But I did get to hear the choir and the solo that you're going to hear later, and it is a blessing for this service, I will say. Last week you had an Earth Day service here, and from everything I understand about it, it was fun. I talked to Nancy Olson about it. But Earth Day landed right in between. So I thought our opening worship service words could give a little nod back to Earth Day, because let's take it through the year, as will later our opening hymn. From Richard Gilbert, "Blessed is the earth, our beloved home, for she is a planet of plenitude. Blessed are they who protect the earth and all her creatures, from the plants of the field to the trees of the forest, for their reward shall be harmony with the web of existence. Rejoice and be glad, for the earth and her people are one." Nancy.
Good morning. Ada is going to light our chalice for us this morning. Thank you, Ada. So this ritual of lighting our chalice reminds us to continually renew our promise to live into our covenant, to put love into action, and to live out this community of love and justice that we surely aim to be. If you would please rise in body or spirit as we share the words that are printed in your order of celebration. They're in Spanish and English. We'll say the words in Spanish first. And if you're online, are we online? Oh, we are online. Hallelujah, hallelujah. So those people who are online are appreciative of that. Please let us know where you're lighting your chalice from. All right. El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia, y el servicio es su ley. Vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad en el amor y ayudarnos unos a otros. Este es nuestro pacto. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. Thank you.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies, for every sea, for our lives, all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth.
And now for your sermon, a little earlier than usual. And by the way, I learned to use the word sermon many moons ago. Dick Pfister, a member of one of the congregations that I served, told me, no, I looked it up, it really is a sermon, because the word sermon, there are 3 parts to a definition. There are actually 2 definitions, but the first one is an oral presentation, tick, in a public setting, tick, that has something to do the subject of a religious nature. I'm going to talk about death today, so I figure tick. The second definition is an annoying harangue. So I figure I got my bases covered calling it a sermon. I chose to name this sermon Sundays with Marianne as a nod to the classic book Tuesdays with Morrie. Have any of you heard of that one? Some of you, yes, okay, good. Some may or may not. It's primarily a memoir, a nonfiction work written by Mitch Albom. It chronicles the author's real life. His real life on Tuesday afternoons visiting with his dying former sociology professor, Morrie Schwartz. So he does this once a week. The book is also, and I love this, classified as a biography and an autobiography. And for me, it's because it weaves together these 2 men's lives so much that it is a biography and an autobiography. It really is a thematic, relational story. It focuses on themes of life, death, love, and finding meaning in the end of life, to give meaning to life. Often within Unitarian Universalist circles, we call faith a search for meaning, an ongoing search for meaning. And I find that this book is an ongoing search for meaning. Some of you may have heard that over years, nurses who work with people who are dying have noticed that there are 5 things that those who are dying want to convey. So here they are in this time of life where things start to become more crystal clear, usually. And the 5 things they want to convey are thank you, please forgive me, I forgive you, I love you, goodbye. As a minister, as a death doula, I teach end-of-life classes, and I try to help people get some of this said before they're on their dying bed, because we don't know if we're going to get a chance to say that or not. And so I have entered in this profession, this vocation of end-of-life ministry, along with my regular ministry, not because I went after it, it called me, and I tried to duck away from it a few times, I can assure you, but here I am doing just that. This is an excerpt from Tuesdays with Morrie. On a hot, humid day in August 1994, Morrie Schwartz and his wife, Charlotte, went to the neurologist's office, and he asked them to sit before he broke the news. Morrie had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, a brutal, unforgiving illness of the neurological system, and there was no known cure. Morrie's doctors guessed he had 2 years left. He knew it was less. But my professor, says Mitch, had made a profound decision, one he began to construct the day he came out of that doctor's office with a sword hanging over. He said, "Do I wither up and disappear, or do I make the best time of my time left?" He asked himself, and decided he would not wither. He would not be ashamed of dying, which a lot of people are. Instead, he would make death his final project, the center point of his days. Since everyone was going to die, he could be of great value, right? He could do research, a human textbook. That appeals to me, and I think to many Unitarian Universalists. Let's keep learning. Basically, he said, study me in my slow and patient demise, watch what happens to me, and learn from me. Morrie would walk that final bridge between life and death and narrate the trip. As you read the book, which I had to reread, that is exactly what Morrie does. And it is, again, a relational accounting occurs on these Tuesday evenings meetings with his former student. He had taught him 20 years ago. So Mitch, I don't know if he'd seen him in those 20 years, but it had been 20 years before. Now in this excerpt, we find the former student, Mitch Albom. He looks back 20 years when he first met Morrie, when Morrie entered the classroom for the first time. Mitch writes this: he enters the classroom, sits down, and doesn't say anything. He looks at us. We look at him. At first, there are a few giggles, but Morrie only shrugs. And eventually, a deep silence falls, and we begin to notice the smallest sounds. The radiator humming in the corner of the room. The nasal breathing of one of the students. Then some of us become agitated. When is he going to say something? We squirm, we check our watches. A few students look out the window trying to be above it all. This goes on for 15 minutes before Morrie finally breaks in with a whisper. What's happening here? And slowly a discussion begins, as Morrie has wanted to all along, about the effect of silence on human relations. Why are we embarrassed about silence? What comfort do we find in all the noise? Last evening, I attended a Catholic Mass in Bloomington, Indiana. It was the blessing of a new altar, which is a very unusual ritual to be able to witness. And one of the things I noticed about the Mass is the silence that was left in between each part of the liturgy. And I let that minister to me just as much as the liturgical aspects. And I'll tell you, they poured a lot of oil on that new altar. That was wild. My spiritual director, Angeles Arian, often asked the question. She said, if you're experiencing soul loss, which can be sometimes experienced as a depression, as some anxiety, you're just not able to quite come into yourself. One of the questions you ask is, when did I stop spending time in the sweet territory of silence? The Unitarian Universalist minister, the late Reverend Dr. Forrest Church, stated that religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. Now, when I first heard this quote, it did not ring true for me. I'm thinking religion is multi-layered, I argued. It could not be summed up so simply. But then the more I sat with it, the more I began to see some of the depth of the statement's simplicity. And in my understanding, it's our human response that's multi-layered. From the mystical to the philosophical, religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. If this is true, we Unitarian Universalist seekers don't talk as much as other religions about this latter part, this having to die. And so I find myself in pulpits not always talking about this, but sometimes it is my call. One of the things I like to do first is just offer a framework. So let's just look at life expectancy. 2,000 years ago, the average age of death was 25. No, some of that was because of so much infant mortality. There were people reaching 50 or 60, but half died by 15, half by 35. Death was a universal enemy coming quickly and soon. In the US, 130 years ago, the average age of death was 50. Now it is around, going up and down, around 78. And here's the thing, in the early 1900s here in the US, death was still largely a household event. People died at homes. Hospitals existed, but were often perceived as places for the poor to die rather than places of going to heal. In the 1920s and 40s, as medicine transitioned from providing comfort to actually being there to cure diseases, and this came with the advent of antibiotics, immunizations, hospitals became a place for and effective at treating acute illnesses, a big change. So then we hit post-World War II, and this is where the big shift occurred. A rapid increase in hospital bed availability combined with changing family structures, women began to enter the workforce, and technological advancements, I don't know if they were advancements, I wrote that, moved death from home to the hospital. Hospitals then, deaths peaked with roughly half of US deaths occurring in hospitals by 1949 to 1950, and up to 2/3 by 1970s. Now, real quickly, if you go out and ask people, where do you hope to die when you die? They want to be home, right? But that was the peak. It began to decline in the late 20th century. By 2017, for the first time in decades, deaths at home became more common than hospital deaths in the US, rising to 31%. It's about still there in 2025, compared to 30% in hospitals, and the rest tend to be in long-term care facilities. That was largely driven by the hospice movement and the desire for quality of life. As we were given more quality of life, We decided we wanted that and not just a prolonged treatment. So again, these life expectancy increases came from advances in health, nutrition, clean water, sanitation, neonatal care, even though I believe Indiana kind of falls behind in that area, antibiotics, vaccines. So modern medicine came along and kind of curbed a lot of these infectious diseases, which took people quickly. Now we have more chronic diseases, often leading to slower deaths. Some of those can be long and painful. But I love this perspective giver. If human history, I'm putting it around 250,000 to 300,000 years, was compressed into 1 week, so you take our human history, life expectancy of 50 was just in the last 5 minutes. So this whole thing about us living longer and having different kinds of illnesses that take us in death is very new, and I don't feel like we've caught up yet. I don't think we've caught up from COVID being in our lives. I think that's why so many people are wanting to reach for something they're being told, like, yes, I will fix this. Well, people are wanting concrete, but not all of us. When I talk to people who are aging, and I do go to a lot of long-term care facilities, they say, not in a bad way, but death is now my friend. I've made peace with that. And that's a lot of Unitarian Universalists. Some of them believing that there will be something afterwards, and some of them, no, but I've had a good life. Death is now my friend. So there's a lot there we have to deal with it, from deaths that happen that are unexpected in our lives to those that go on maybe longer than we thought they would. And this has all changed so rapidly. How do we engage the medical, financial, personal, legal, and even spiritual decisions that we encounter? And how do we plan regarding our own death? In light of my own personal and professional experiences, I want to share 2 things. 1, resistance to such planning for your own death is normal. Yet the actual decision-making process can be very enriching in terms of really exploring your own values and priorities. 2, and this I have experienced over and over, when there is no planning and someone dies or is on the brink of death with no instructions as to their wishes, it places a heavy burden on those family members and friends who are left. This burden can involve financial resources, emotional quandaries, legal ambiguities, religious confusions, and philosophical conflicts. Again, when there is no planning and someone dies, it can also cripple the grieving process and can leave family and friends struggling, and sometimes I've seen them never get over it. They disagreed on issues of what should be done. And some of this can drag on for years. And the emotional issues get dragged right along with them. So as a religious professional, I encourage everyone to be responsible and make your wishes known regarding the possibility of your own death. And just don't write it out for yourself. Tell other people, because whether it's siblings or friends or children, they'll come along and say, oh no, that's not what they meant. I've been there when that happens. And clarity is very important. I can remember many years ago when my mom first put together her song request for her memorial services. Later, my younger brother and I were looking at the list when she's getting closer to dying, and one of the songs was Deep Purple. Due to the generational differences, my brother and I were stupefied. We knew Deep Purple as the rock band. You mean you want Smoke on the Water played at your memorial service? Luckily, my mom was not dead yet. And she just, she just looked at us and she goes, "Go look it up, Deep Purple, 1939. It's a beautiful song. I'm really glad we got that clarified. I hope that's not the last thing she remembers about us. But as a minister, as a hospital chaplain, I've witnessed families and friends struggling with medical decisions concerning their loved ones, again, when they're not made clear. There are tears, disagreements, and too often, regrets. There are so many options that family members need to know. Not only I want to be cremated, which often becomes controversial, but where do you want the cremains to go? There's a new phenomenon happening with people who go into houses that have been sold and they look in the closet and there are ashes. They're not marked. I read this article and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're not marked. They just didn't know what. Yeah, funeral homes, what do we do with the ashes? And also what funeral home that person wants. That can also become controversial. So here we are in this time, the baby boomers have arrived. A lot of baby boomers, and so we find baby boomers wanting more unique meaning in their death and dying. And so it's both unique and universal for each person, what they want for the memorial, what they want with the ashes or burial. Do they want green burial? It goes on and on. Again, if these haven't been expressed, people are going to have to try to put that together. As a minister, I have had people come in and say, well, what did my mom want? And when I could, I had people fill out pieces. I would do a sermon like that, and then I'd have them fill out. And so I had some, but too often I didn't because that person hadn't filled it out. And now, here in the 21st century, there are more options. I mentioned, has anybody seen the series Matlock with Kathy Bates? It's pretty good. Just seeing Kathy Bates act is pretty good. There was, a couple people told me, you've got to see this, because they knew I was interested in AI. What is available now is AI can take the likeness of the person, download their talks, all of their emails, everything else, and create a person to interact with, like grandmother. So the grandkid has somebody to interact with after they die. And people think this is good. At first I was like, absolutely not. I'm still kind of, no. Because that interaction, no matter what, is not bodily. It's not a hug. It's not the spirit. It's really comforting having their voice, their image. There is a piece on one of the Matlocks that goes into this, and I thought they handled it really well. At one point, the character that Kathy Bates plays gets actually addicted to talking to her dead daughter on this, and then realizes it. You can also have your ashes flown up in a rocket or made into jewelry. There is other ways to take care of the body, aquamation, which is said to be more environmentally sound than cremation. There's some plus and minuses there. Harvard has a special donation designation for brain research. The University of Tennessee's unique program through anthropology and forensic studies, you can donate your body, and then after death, it will be placed in a wooded area and studied as it decays naturally, which I think is kind of cool. Deep breath, everybody. Whew, that's a lot. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. So how do we respond as Unitarian Universalists? In a conversation that Bill Moyers once had with Joseph Campbell, Moyers asked, "You say that the image of death is the beginning of mythology." Kind of like that religion piece. What do you mean? Campbell says, The earliest evidence of anything like mythological thinking is associated with graves and death. Later, their dialogue goes into religious concerns, and Moyers offers an inquisitive response to Campbell. So are you saying that death is life and life is death, and that the two are in accord? That you have to balance between death and life. There are two aspects of the same thing, which is that being and becoming. Yes. How different would our society be if we could actually see this? And we used to see death more when it happened at home, when many of our families lived on farms or were near areas where a lot of either livestock were taken or made into food. We were around that. Now we have pets, a lot of people, and I find with children that is one of the greatest teachers. It's a great teacher for us as well, ongoing. In congregations I've served, when a pet died in a family, I would often take the book, The 10th Best Thing About Barney, and I believe that Nancy Olson has shared that book with you. It's about the death of a cat. I'd take it to the family, and we'd read it. I remember sitting with one family on their porch. We'd read that through, and then they would name the 10 things they appreciated about their pet. Many tears, and I always watched the children watching their parents and sharing that time with them. So I always had a lot of copies about that. Recently, our cat, about 2 months ago, Dardar Banksy, died. It was in the afternoon, it was sunny, I was upstairs, she was in the crook of my arm, and she slowly let go. Now, because of what I'm doing now, I'm in transition with my ministry and everything, I hadn't done anything around death for a while. And I find when I do that, I start getting like this. But when she died, and she just stretched out and died, I felt like, oh, I do not have to be afraid of this. I do not have to be afraid of you. I do not have to be afraid of this body. And so we stayed there for a while. And she was on a red blanket that we had, a red blanket, very royal looking. She was a black cat. And without thinking about a lot of it, I eventually wrapped her in that red blanket. I took her over to my office, which had this high stool, and I put her on there. And I just intuitively started putting things around, flowers, and then I told my partner, Dardar Banksy is lying in state upstairs. And so several people stopped by, including my brother, including our other cat, who I swear let out a noise that sounded like a human oh. I told that to a friend of mine, and she said, our cat is dying too. And I left Dardar Banksy in state for 2 days upstairs before we buried her. And my friend ended up doing the same thing. She's a farmer and said, we bury our animals so quickly. We decided to have their cat lying in state. And she said, just that time, that quietness, that silence helped them in their grieving. How do we respond to death's inevitability? How can we as Unitarian Universalists respond in a way so that it might become a being and a becoming, leaving us more alive, those left behind? Enter again Tuesdays with Maury by Mitch Albom. As I shared earlier, Maury had Lou Gehrig's disease, and he had invited his former student, Mitch, to be there. In essence, he continues to teach through his dying process. Maury talks to Mitch in an unembarrassed truth about his death. He then presents a series of questions to his former student. Have you found someone to share your heart with? And that's not necessarily a lifelong partner. Have you found someone to share your heart with? I think that can be a pet. Are you giving to your community? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you trying to be as human as you can be? What a series of questions to have. Dying, Maury suddenly says, is only one thing to be sad over, Mitch. Living unhappily is something else. So many of the people who come to visit me are unhappy. Another thing not to be ashamed about. Mitch asks why, and Maury says this, well, for one thing, the culture we have does not make people feel good about themselves. It doesn't. It's constantly telling us we're not enough. And we're teaching the wrong things, and you have to be strong enough to say, if the culture doesn't work, don't buy it. So you begin to create your own little subcultures or congregations. Most people can't do that. They're more unhappy than me, says Maury, right now in my condition. I may be dying, but I'm surrounded by loving, caring souls. How many people can say that? And I wonder, how can congregational communities help create a more caring and loving culture to bring people in so they don't have to experience that, or when we are experiencing that, not alone. Sharing our stories helps to create compassion and caring in our relationships is part of what we do as religious seekers. No congregational community is perfect. So let this congregation be imperfect. We are on human endeavors. We make mistakes. We bump up against our limitations periodically. However, we Unitarian Universalists continually strive to uphold certain values and center love. From that theological perspective, God is love. God is the spirit of this church, and that is why I preach this sermon today. Also, the principle of the inherent worth and dignity of each person. And I know our culture does not offer a great deal of dignity to those who are dying. If you have questions about that, visit a long-term care facility. Lastly, from Maury. Here's what I mean by building your own little subculture. I don't mean you disregard every rule of your community. I don't go around naked, for example. I don't run around and go through red lights. The little things I obey, but the big things, how we think, what we value, those you must choose yourself. We know this. The most important thing in life is to learn how to give out love, but also let it come into you. We often think we don't deserve it. I feel that myself sometimes. My wish for all of you is that your belief in life and the strength of love will guide each and every one of you in this fragile journey of living and dying together. Again, words from Reverend Dr. Forrest Church. Death always awakens us to the preciousness and fragility of life. Religion is our human response to the dual reality of being alive and having to die. Whatever your faith, your meaning-making, we are religious animals. Knowing that we must die, we question what life means. By how thoughtfully and attentively we live, we both invent and discover meaning. Put very simply, the purpose of life is to live in such a way that our lives will prove worth dying for. My hope then is that today's worship service on death and dying awakens in each of you that sense of preciousness, kind of like when Dardar Banksy was lying right there in the crook of my arm, and fragility, particularly in these unpredictable times, in these politically volatile times. Let us not wait to express our love. I was informed right before the service today that Bloomington had a shooting early this morning. 9 people were wounded. And that feels really close to home. and it's close to me, and it's close to you. These questions from Maury Schwartz. Have you found someone to share your heart with? Are you giving to your community? Are you at peace with yourself? Are you trying to be as human as you can be? Believe in love, both giving and receiving. And may that bless your life as you go forward. There's much wonderful music to hold you and be with you as I depart. And Austin will also bring you much good ministry. Thank you and blessings.
Please join me in taking a few moments to note that which is currently bringing joy or sorrow to our community. In joy, we celebrate that Betty and Jim Scrimenti are moved into their new home at the Roosevelt at Salt Creek in Illinois. Their new address can be found in the Know newsletter. Their phone numbers are still the same, and they would love a call or a visit if you're in the Chicago area. We also hold Richard Campy and the Campy Beauchamp family in our hearts. Susan has passed peacefully in hospice at Clear Vista on Friday evening. And we hold in our hearts all of those affected by gun violence, including that shooting early this morning in Bloomington. Now let us hold a moment of silence together for both these and as well as the joys and sorrows in our hearts that are yet unnamed. Thank you. We will now have musical offering from Jane Alexander.
This piece is this on? Okay. This piece is written or composed by an Indiana composer, Ned Rorem, who lives near Richmond. But it's based on the text is from Edmund Spenser, who lived in the middle of, basically in the middle of the 16th century. So these are the words, very short. What if some little pain the passage have that makes frail flesh to fear the bitter wave? Is not short pain well born that brings long ease and lays the soul to sleep in quiet grave? Sleep after toil, port after stormy sea, ease after war, death after life doth greatly please. What if some little pain the passage have that makes frail flesh to fear the bitter wave? Is not short pain well born that brings long ease and lays the soul to sleep in quiet grave? Sleep after toil, port after stormy sea.
Thank you, Jane. That was beautiful. Good morning. Sorry. Good morning. We are finishing up this year's pledge drive for the annual budget, which will give us a better idea of what we're facing next year. If you haven't had a chance to pledge yet, no worries. Come see me at a table in the social hall after the service, and I'll have paper forms to complete, all confidential. And a huge thank you to everyone who has already pledged. As our board co-presidents and Reverend Katie have said, we are facing a budget shortfall next year. This is not new, but what is new is that we are facing it head on. Next year's budget cuts staff hours, and we may have to cut Reverend Katie's hours to 3/4 time. We are working on more rentals and revenue, but that will take a couple years. It will be easier once the capital projects are completed and we have reliable air conditioning and heat. Having all pledges in this week will help us shape how deep the cuts are, maybe, and what the choices are. Also, Julia and Ellen sent out an email with a video on Friday morning talking about this, if you have more questions, and I'm happy to answer questions. Their video included a short survey, and we would really appreciate it if you could fill that out. We want to know what you think, and we would appreciate the responses. As Reverend Katie said, no guilt trip, but we want to be sure you all know. We all appreciate everyone's involvement in service to and with, and contributions to the church. Thank you.
This week, we are sharing our offering plate with UU Ministry for the Earth, which centers the UU shared values in their environmental work. Among many other things, they strive for equity by working from a framework of race and class-informed environmental justice, and they promote interdependence by centering the leadership of affected communities by focusing on collective action. To contribute, you can give cash or a check into the collection plate, or if online, you can go to allsoulsindy.org, where you'll find a link that says how to donate at the top right corner. If you are paying online or using a check, please indicate if your gift is a pledge payment or if it's for Share the Plate. Thank you for your generosity in supporting the mission of All Souls and for your continued love for one another and for this world. The morning offering may now be given and gratefully received.
Time to gather. season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven. A time to gain, a time to lose, a time to rend, a time to sow, a time to love, a time to hate, a time for peace. I swear it's not too late. To everything turn, turn, turn. There is a season, turn, 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 and a time to every purpose under heaven.
I share with you these words by William F. Schultz. Regardless of our differences, there are a host of affirmations that we embrace as the basis for our faith. Whatever we think the holy may be, creation itself is holy. We make no distinctions between the natural and the supernatural, the secular and the sacred. We simply cherish the earth and all its creatures, and the stars in all their glory. Life's gifts are available to everyone, not just the chosen or the saved. Only human artifice or blind ill fortune can separate us from the source of our blessings. That which is divine, precious, or profound is made evident not in the miraculous or otherworldly, but in the simple and the everyday. We look not to the heavens or an afterlife for our meaning, but to the exuberance of this life's unfolding. Human beings themselves are responsible for the planet and its future. Social and environmental justice is a religion obligation. The future is never fated. Every one of us is held in creation's hand. We share its burden and its radiance. Hence strangers need not be enemies. The earth is our cherished home. All its inhabitants are companions. Though death confronts us all, we love life all the more, perhaps because we lose it. An honorable and impassioned life may not deny death its due, but it can surely deny it of its victory.
Thank you, Austin. The choir would like to invite you to sing the refrain, to turn, turn, turn. Let's sing it all together.